Hello and welcome to Nerdherky for Nerds by Nerds. I'm Nerdix Dave, and today I'm hanging out with Vexwild. How are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. Got some like zoomy juice on the way to town today, so like
Yeah, absolutely. I I,
mhm.
I also have mine here. Oh, I gotta come.
It's hidden in the green screen.
Yeah. If you would be so kind of introduce yourself and tell people a little bit about you before we jump on in.
Okay. I am Vex Wild. I started doing some stuff on TikTok this year and it kind of just really popped right off. So super huge nerd. I'm sure that's probably very apparent given where we are.
Yeah. Yeah, that's I found you over on TikTok, and you got like a ton of followers over there. You're If you haven't passed us already, you're like about to. I meant to check. As far as what we have on YouTube, so you're like cruising
Mhm.
and super fast growth.
Yeah, that was super like weird to me personally because I've got a
Yeah,
couple friends that have done it and it was like I was expecting like this really like steady rate to go up and then all of a sudden I just kept getting like these big spikes and I'm like this feels very I wasn't prepared for that.
yeah. So for us, like our growth has always been like consistent and gradual. So we've
Mhm.
never had the experience that. Matter of fact, like our first 6 months, it was like screaming into the void. we're, we're just stubborn and just kept doing it though.
We're just chilling in Ted's
So
basement.
as always, folks, there are links down in the description. There's a link tree for Vexwild. Go follow them. You got great content over on TikTok.
Mhm.
Um, but for those that don't know you, what kind of content are you making over there?
Okay, so for the most part, it is very like casual type of conversations. I interact with my comment section a lot because for the most part, everybody's just got questions about D&D, and I kind of love to just talk about it. I think a lot of creators have this thing where they're like, here's all of this knowledge all at one time, and a lot of people are like, well, wait, I have this like one really specific niche thing. And of course, if somebody else has something, like if they have those things that they want to talk about, other people have that exact same question and just don't want to ask. So it's really interactive and it's something that I do like. Most of my content is like D&D related. I have a lot of people that love like just my morning thought dump type of stuff to get all like my ADHD out for the morning before I got to actually focus on doing anything, as well as like the casual customer service industry stories.
I'm sure there's a plethora of that. So when you started doing TikTok, did you intend to do D&D content? Uh, was it thought dumps in the beginning?
Okay, so the original plan was to stick with customer service. It's what I've done for like over a decade now. It's something that I was like, every single person I know has worked some corner of the
Yeah.
customer service industry. We can all relate to this. We've all had bad customers, good days, bad days, things like that. And because I started doing the whole like comment section interaction type of thing, a lot of people just started asking me random questions, and that led into me talking like very specifically to my audience at the time, being like, hey, I really appreciate that you guys just let me talk.
Yeah.
I want to talk about things that I like every once in a while, like nerdy stuff. And I specifically said I want to talk about D&D, but I don't know if I want to, and then it just kind of kicked off from there.
What kind of content like does the best for you?
It's honestly pretty steady between like the thought dumps for sure, like just because I think it gives this sense of like normalcy to a lot of people that
Yeah.
have like all of these constant thoughts that are just like roaming, and to see somebody actually let that flow like they would naturally, I think is really reassuring for people. Like I'm not alone in this aspect. And then other than that, when I actually do take the time to like sit down and like do like little D&D skits, those ones do tend to work better, but like I'm a normal adult with normal adult everyday 9 to 5 type of things. So it does take some extra time to plan those.
How did how did you get into gaming?
Okay, so funny enough, I was super reluctant to start gaming because I grew up with this mentality of like, you know, gaming will get you nowhere. Like it's so dumb, it's not productive. And then like right at the tail end of high school, because all of my friend group were like the stereotypical D&D nerds, right? And they were like, just play. just play a game. It'll be super fun. And the very first character I ever made was a second edition ranger. I was super confused because they were like, it's not worth it to make an actual character sheet. Just put the character on paper. If you make it past level 5, we'll get you an actual sheet.
That sounds very AD&D. Well, you know,
that like fell in love with the game. It was so much fun.
Yeah. Well, I also feel like part of like the AD&D mentality too is like, I don't know. Well, you started playing much later than I did, but back, you know, when I started playing, actually getting character sheets were a lot more difficult. Like you had to buy them, or you had to go someplace and print them out somehow. You know, now it's like you just like,
oh yeah, you can literally just like go into Google nowadays and be like 5th edition character sheet, 2nd edition character sheet, and just print them. Whereas like, I think that was another big reason they were like, we're not going to waste the time to get you a character sheet because it actually takes effort.
Do you remember that character, that first character you played?
I do, and I remember getting so much smoke for it because I have always been notoriously awful about coming up with character names. And so my buddy that was actually like helping me make it and is like, all right, you have a ranger, your primary weapon is a longbow. What do you want to name it? And I'm like, Katniss Everdeen. And he's like, no, you can't name it after like that's an actual character. You got to pick one. And I'm like, fine. Primrose. I named it after Katniss's sister. And he was like, okay, fine, we're done. Just name it Primrose. I don't care.
You're doing this all wrong. Well, my first character's name was Derek Woodstalker. So,
how'd you come up with that name?
I don't know. I just made it up. I don't.
I guess this feels right.
This feels right. And I was probably like tweens, teens. So we're going back like 30 some years. So like, I have no idea. I'm probably lucky that I just even remember that character. But it was a fighter druid. Elven fighter druid, and back then you had level limits, so.
And then like realistically I'd watched so many like 2nd edition games. That was like my one big character from it, and I was just like, I don't know if I could commit to like doing this. This is so, how do you guys have so many characters? I've got such a hard time keeping time with like one of them and like remembering everything that this character does. And then like it was right as 3rd edition and 3.5 were starting to get like actually like mainstream popular. So then we just kind of naturally like gravitated to 3.5, which is where the bulk of my characters come from.
I drug my group screaming and kicking in at 3.5 or 3rd, I guess. Like I was getting I would get Dragon Magazine, and like they were doing like all the updates and what they were going to be doing. I'm like, this looks so cool. But the rest of my group was like, we've got this like huge stack of books, and we're not interested in buying new books and making these books useless.
Like, and I've seen it going through like so many different editions. Like it is, people are so reluctant to actually make the shift from one to another. And then like, for the most part, they do. I've seen it a lot more with people wanting to stick to 3.5. Primarily, I think it's because people are like, I love to break my characters. I love to make these god level tier characters.
I just love math so much. Ones and twos excite me.
And then you get into something like 3.5 you get into like 5th edition, and the biggest gripe that I hear from people is it's too easy. And it's like, but that's what helps the game grow. It's not fun for new players to have to like actually do division in their everyday gaming sessions. Like that's not what we're here for. Just let them add and
forget that, right? Like I remember like getting a new player into the group, and maybe they've played before, maybe they haven't, and being like, oh cool, you want to play with us? Here's a stack of books, go over there and make your character, and like 2 hours later you can have fun with us.
And it's always like, that was my biggest gripe with 3.5 was all of the source material. Oh my gosh, it was overwhelming because all my buddies are like the research guys. They're like, I want this specific thing to do with this specific weapon, and I need to find the exact class that will work really, really well with that. So now we all got to bring our own source material because we're not hauling like 200 pounds worth of books to every session just for one thing.
Yeah, that did get a bit ridiculous. So, do you prefer being a DM or a player?
Okay, this is something that I've actually talked about on my channel like way back in the day. I like to be the middle ground of both of them. I don't really prefer being a DM or a player, but I like being like the DM assistant because I love teaching new players and having them fall in love with this game like I did.
Yeah.
And it's really helpful when you have somebody that's kind of in that like player position right next to you, that they feel like they can just lean over and be like, what was I supposed to roll a d20 for again?
We call that the buddy system, and like I guess we didn't realize it at the time, but intuitively we had always just done that. Like if someone new showed up to the table, we would just stick them next to like the most experienced player, and they would just help them.
And at the same time, like, and I use the term DM assistant because I like to help other DMs learn how to like make their good calls and things like that, and how to actually like run a game. So it is kind of like the mom friend at the table that's like, hey sweetie, you're doing so good.
I was just thinking, I don't know why I thought of this, but when you said DM assistant, it just made me think of Clippy.
Did you know that you could put a comma here?
Yeah.
You could throw some combat here. Your players look like they're getting bored.
I think D&D Beyond or VTTs need the version of Clippy.
Dude, that would be hilarious. Like, can we tell D&D Beyond that that's something they need to add to one D&D?
Yeah.
Give us a Clippy.
Maybe the little cartoon Dungeon Master character pops up.
But it's got to be the old Dungeon Master from the animated movie. If it's not him, I don't want it.
Yeah, for sure. So there is a question in the chat from when we very first started. I want to jump in and grab real quick. So David Kahn wants to know, how would you make Odo from DS9 and D&D Changeling Mimic and Ooze traits? And this one is actually really easy now.
So I'll be real with you, I don't know what DS9 is. Like, I'm probably drawing a massive blank.
Star Trek, Deep Space Nine.
Okay, all right. I'm gonna get so much crap for this. I was not a Star Trek fan, so I didn't watch it.
So like with all that stuff, I was just a casual. Although I will say, of all the Star Treks, Deep Space Nine was the one I liked the most. Because it just had, I felt it had better stories. But so he was like the constable, the head of security, but he was a shapeshifter and would sleep in a bucket.
Okay, so I think I would probably go more so with that mimic type of trait, but like I do really like the ooze traits of like being able to kind of like take on the like basically like if I fits I sits type of thing.
Yeah. Well, Spelljammer introduced the plasmoid, so I'm like, hey, he's just
that's actually a really good point. So he's just basically like a plasmoid reskinned.
Yeah, and then what is it? What's the second level transmutation spell? Is it Alter Self?
I think it's. You said that, and my brain was like, "It's Disguise Self." Like,
well, Disguise Self will work as well, but and that's just the first level spell, I think, right? And then Alter Self actually lets you take on some traits. So like, you need like at third level, you're almost there.
This is one of the things that I really like about having like everything just like at the ready now. Like you don't have to constantly like flip through books, be like, what was the thing that I remember? Because I could literally just like pull it up, and you're right, it is Alter Self. Just pulling that up.
The problem with this game is after you've played through like so many editions, they all start to blur together. We get a lot of shit for getting stuff wrong, but I'm like, dude, I've got like 6 versions of this game in my head.
Exactly. Like I've played through so many editions. I've had so many homebrew rules that work with different editions. Like, forgive me for being human.
I got called out on stream game because we do inspiration wrong, and I just forgot that we changed it in our games. Where it's like we just use you can turn in an inspiration at any time in our game. Like you get a bad roll, change it, turn it into inspiration. But apparently the way it really works is you have to call it before you use it.
See that I would rule with you guys on this one. Like it's one of those things that's like as long as it hasn't been like determined,
Yeah.
kind of like I'm not gonna burn a smite unless I know like it's gonna hit. Being like I don't want to burn my inspiration unless I know I have to. Like this feels really low to me. Like let me throw that on there.
Yeah, so that's kind of what we started doing, and then we had done it for so long, I had
Mhm.
forgotten that we just like started doing it. And there's probably like a bunch of things like that as well.
We actually used to do something that I do carry over into my games now. One of my buddies invented it called like the badass point,
Yeah,
where if you were ever in like a sticky situation, you rolled a one, you were 100% about to die. If you had one of these in your back pocket, you could burn it to do something that you 100% should not be able to do to save yourself. And it's made some amazing role play sessions.
do you use a lot of homebrew rules in your games?
More like rule of cool stuff. Like I do try, since
Yeah,
I like to teach new players, to stick to the books as closely as possible, while also being like really honest with my players. Like, hey, this isn't something that I should be able to like let you do in like a normal situation. This will not happen at everybody's table, but I'm gonna let it fly at mine.
are most of your games in person or online?
As of recently, they've been online. I definitely miss doing all of the in-person games, like having everybody come over, bring some snacks, or even making like a big pot of soup for everybody to eat around the table. Cause I like that like actual like interaction with people. Cause online I can't like get up and be as animated as I want to, because like you gotta see
Yeah.
right here. Whereas like for
Stay in
me,
your box.
yeah, I gotta be in this cute little box here. Whereas like if it's actually at my table, I like to
Yeah.
get up and like walk around my table and like actually like get in my players' bubbles and stuff and act out what's actually happening. And it makes the story so much more immersive. I love it.
I like to get in my player's face and try and traumatize them if I can.
You can't just traumatize them with words.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we've kind of do a mix of online and
Mhm.
offline, but we've always I think most people prefer offline.
I think
It's just
for
harder.
like, yeah, I think for, I wouldn't necessarily say most people prefer offline versus online. I think it does come down to how you play, because online is 100% more convenient.
Yeah,
Like it just is, because we all have like really busy schedules. It's not as easy to get together for a game now as an adult as it was as a kid. So it's just easier to be like, hey, can everybody be in Discord at like 7 o'clock on Sunday night? And let's just play.
that's true. And pants are optional, so
Exactly. Pants are the devil.
I guess I just attribute them to kind of like different experiences too. Like when
Hmm.
we get together, it's playing the game, but it's also just like kind of hanging out with our friends or whatever.
Hmm. And plus, I feel like a lot of niche type of things. I don't know if I'd call it niche per se, but like rolling a nat 20 online versus like rolling a nat 20 in person is not the same type of reaction. And it's like everybody at the table gets hyped because it's a really intense moment, and we're all just sitting there waiting and watching the roll, and then we
Yeah.
watch that nat 20 come up, and like the whole table like a Super Bowl party level explosion of excitement.
I guess it depends on your medium too if you're playing online, right? Like
Yeah.
I because even in a lot of my games it's like kind of a mix of theater of the mind and VTT
Mhm.
or all theater of the mind. Some people are using real dice, some people are using virtual dice. So it's kind of like all over the place. But if everyone's using a VTT and everyone's using virtual dice, I guess everyone's more vested in the roles because everyone gets to see them.
Yeah. And I would definitely agree with that. Like, there's something significantly more immersive with the actual like online or the actual in-person interactions versus online. And it's not to say that the online interactions aren't immersive as well. I think it does take a lot more like being good with your words type of things rather than just
Yeah.
having like the actions play out as they would.
Well, I feel like when I play online though that like I'm more vested in the game and it's
Hmm.
more about the game
Hmm.
because you're just focused in on this little box in front of you. So I feel
Yeah,
like we get more story done, more actual game done than we do in person.
that's
But
also very fair
but I also
because
feel like it's necessary because I can't sit. at a computer as long as I can like sit in Ted's basement at our gaming table.
Yeah, no, I totally get that too. And especially like when everybody is like, you're just kind of like waiting and bouncing around the table to go. I'm really bad at this. I get super distracted by my phone where I'm like, oh, cool, it's not my turn.
Yeah.
But whereas like it is online and you're just like watching, just like, what's going to happen?
Yeah, it has a way of kind of like sucking you in.
Mm-hmm.
So, are you currently playing in any games?
I'm actually currently planning a game for my brothers, a group of friends, and all that stuff. Where originally, because I had gotten the revamped Curse of Strahd over the pandemic, and I just wasn't able to actually get into it. That was originally what we were gonna do, and I kind of just was like, I kind of don't want to do that. I kind of just want to put you guys in a big old sandbox adventure and just let you go. It's easier on me with my work schedule to just be like, these are the kind of things that I want you to do, but like, just go have fun. Go on your little adventures.
So, did you get your brothers into gaming?
Yes, I did. And it was the first couple of campaigns were super fun because there's a big age gap between my brothers and I. So by the time I was like in high school and was like really getting into playing, my brothers were only about 10 years old.
Okay.
And they're playing like typical 10-year-olds. They're like, I want to fight everybody that looks at me sideways, even though it's like the town guard and I did something wrong.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, why can't I just run like I would in Skyrim? And I'm like, because your actions have consequences, babe. But now
was that a little bit of sibling therapy as well?
A little bit. Like, it is really fun to just sit there and they're like, well, why can't I get away with this? And it's like, because this is my table. That's why.
It's time to start handing out some smites.
But they've fallen in love with it. It's a really big bonding thing for us. Because we all play like stereotypical, you're gonna cause problems at the table classes. Because whenever we all get together, one will play a barbarian, the other plays a rogue, and I generally play a bard to kind of like hold everything together.
Yeah.
And it's like that scene from Harry Potter where it's like, whenever there's a problem, why is it you three?
Yeah. Oh, that's funny. So it sounds like they haven't changed much from when they were 10, but now you jump in on the action.
Oh yeah. Now it's like I would almost argue that I'm probably a little bit more chaotic than when I first started. Like still having that very much like being the mom friend at the table without being a cleric, but making sure like everybody else is having a good time. And now that the majority of people that I do play with on a regular basis actually have like a firm grasp and they are what I'd consider experienced players, now I can actually like relax and be like, cool. We've worked so hard to build this campaign. We've worked so hard for everybody to like be productive. Let me ruin that.
I can feel that in my soul. When I'm a player, I tend to be very impulsive, and if the rest of the group gets into long, elaborate plans, I'm like, I'm gonna kick the door in. So,
you just gotta Leroy Jenkins your way through the dungeon. It's fine.
Pretty much. I'm like, we only get to do this so often. We only get together so much. I want things to happen.
Yeah, like
they don't have to be good things, but things need to happen.
They need to happen. We need some good memories. We need the, hey, do you remember this one particular moment in the campaign type of stories? But I would like to be the focal point of them for once.
Yeah. Like in one of our first games of Shadow of the Demon Lord, I think it was, I don't know if it was session 1 or session 2, where 2 of us died. I think it was session 2. 2 of us died because we found an NPC that happened to be a werepossum. And apparently a werepossum is way more badass than it sounds.
So how did you come up with the idea for the werepossum?
I was a player. So like the GM did it. It was just a thing in Shadow of the Demon Lord. And we found him. It was just some like homeless looking guy that looked a little off. And we're trying to help him. Right. And then the moon came out and then he changed. And the DM really went into depth to explaining how he changed. And that maybe we might be a little out of our league, and then he ripped the throat out of the one character, and but in the meantime, I've got this, like, you get, in your starting gear, sometimes you just get like a cool thing,
Yeah.
and I had an uncuttable rope, and I couldn't not use the uncuttable rope. I'm like, well, if I can lasso this guy and then tie him up in a tree, then we can maybe wait till he turns back to normal. And okay. And I just rolled so many bad rolls, and he ended up ripping my character's head off.
Oh, dude, those are the worst times when you're just like, I'm gonna do something really cool, and the dice are like, no, you're not.
No, you're not. Yeah, but that's fine. Got to roll up a new character.
Dude, and it's always, for me personally, it's always the characters that I have like invested the most time in when those bad rolls come up, and you're just like, why? Like, you couldn't have done like the one-shot character, the one that I don't have years of backstory and lore and character building into. It's got to be the one that I've had for the last 3 campaigns.
Well, now you're gonna get now you have a chance to have a new one.
Which is fair. Like, I think that's one of my big things too, is I love character creation so much. There's so many characters that I've had just like ideas for, and I'm sure we all have, that are just kind of casually waiting in my folder, waiting in like the My Character section of D&D Beyond that have never been touched, because I'm like, this is a really cool idea. I can't wait to use it.
I never had problems coming up with character ideas. There's so many you haven't gotten to play yet. It was funny too, like in that session too, Ted is like, and my wife, they're like backing off, kind of reading the room, going, maybe we can just run away. And I'm just thinking, but if I pull this thing off, it's going to be so cool.
Yeah. When you're like, you ever get into those moments where you go to do like the cool thing, and halfway through you're like, this was a mistake. I should not have done this. This was such a bad idea.
Yeah, but then you're like committed. And you're like, I don't know about you, but then like it was totally that situation. But I was committed to it. I was like, this will work or I will die trying.
So, like, what's your favorite I'm going to die trying if I don't, like, I'm going to die trying moment?
I don't know. Like, I feel like most of them happened in that campaign. Because Shadow of the Demon Lord's a lot tougher than D&D, I would say. There was another scenario that happened after that, and one of the characters did die. But there were these bug people, and they had like a hive mind, and we encountered their queen, which is just this huge giant, like worm maggot creature with a person's face, and we're like, we could definitely take this, and again, my wife and Ted were like, I don't know about this. And then
I think this what could possibly go wrong.
And then like my wife's character has this one ability where they make this stone armor, but after you dismiss it, it explodes off of you. And the longer you have it on, the more damage it does. Oh. So me and the other player, James, start chanting Dwarf Bomb. And peer pressured my wife into doing it. It worked. It came out okay. We beat it. We beat the big bad, but it definitely during that battle when the damage was being laid out and she was just like spitting out more things for us to fight. It's like, oh, this could be really bad. And James's character did die, but he got to make a new one, so
At least we got a bunch of characters on the back burner that were like, this is a good idea. I can use this one.
Yeah, and it's a new system, so like we haven't made a ton of characters in that system yet. So
gotcha. Okay.
What do you have a go-to non-D&D game, or do you play non-D&D games?
Okay, so I've tried a couple different like other TTRPGs. Like specifically like Pathfinder. I actually really liked Dungeon World for the little bit that I did get to play it, because it was such an easy like collaborative storytelling type of system where everything is just like, I think it's all D6 based, and it was so much fun, but didn't have like a whole lot of people to play it with anymore.
It is always so hard to find people to play other games.
And I feel like it's one of those things that it almost kind of bothers me whenever somebody's like, oh, you only play D&D. And it's like, well, that's a really good way to start people into this hobby. Like, it's the easiest one. It's the most notable one, in my opinion. Like, when they get like comfy with, doing this, then you can actually be like, hey, let's try this other thing. Like, let's try like Vampire the Masquerade, things like that.
Powered by the Apocalypse would probably be, I would say that would be my favorite system to bring in new players now. Because it is so easy. Like you said, it's just 2d6. And, there's just not a lot to it. And everything you're going to do is, right on your character sheet. And and actually even the character sheets, like the first time I played Monster of the Week, I was like, I might need a little help making the character. And then I looked at the playbook system because it's the same as Dungeon World. And I was like, oh, you just follow the instructions. And it was like,
you're like, there's no extra material for this. Like, it's just right here in front. I don't have to look on anything else. There's no other sources.
Yeah, we just put out the quick start rules to our own game, and it's based off of Powered by Apocalypse, but mostly Monster of the Week because that's what I've played. Ted has played Monster of the Week and then some Dungeon World. But yeah, like we're like, you know what? We have an idea for a game, and this system is perfect. Plus we want it to be accessible and easy to learn.
Yeah, which again is kind of why, like, I do think like D&D is probably like everybody's initial go-to. It's like their starting point for a lot of people. I know a lot of people are starting to like start in Pathfinder because I feel like it's branching off into its own point where like it actually is considered its own thing, like not like originally when it was considered more like 3.75.
Yeah. Well, they have a lot of the infrastructure in place. Back in the day, when they split, Pathfinder actually was probably a little bit more popular for a little while, really close to it. And hold on, I gotta ban a moron.
Yeah, I just seen that. I was like, what is this dude doing? Like, is that what you came to do? Was to like hit on people that just ugh.
Yeah. But yeah, so like when it split, and it then became a point of entry for RPGs, much the way D&D has. But I think when 5e came back, D&D became that point of entry again. And it's just branding. I think it's just name more than anything. So.
And I do like that I hate the term dumbed down, but it really is a good way to explain 5e, where like when you look at all the generations that
I prefer streamlined.
There you go. Like that term a lot better. That sounds a lot less aggressive, but like it's so much more streamlined and it's easier for people to literally just pick up and like roll a character sheet in 15 minutes versus like what we were talking about with AD&D where it takes like 2.5 hours to just roll your first character.
AD&D wasn't too bad. I would say 3rd edition was like the hard edition for making a character, where you have all these books surrounding you. Like the way like I define it, in my opinion, is AD&D. It wasn't that it was hard or had a lot of rules. It had but the rules it did have were needlessly complex. Like THAC0, like you had to do you had to do this backwards math to get to arrive at a position. The best thing 3rd edition did was said like high rolls are always good, and we're going to count up.
Yep, like, and it's one of those things whenever I talk about THAC0 and I'm like, I can't stand it, I don't miss it, and there's always dudes in my comment section that are like, but THAC0's so great, it's not that hard, and it's like, simmer down, babe, okay? I'm allowed to not like THAC0, just like the majority of people don't like THAC0.
I mean, there's no reason for THAC0. There's only one good thing that came of THAC0. One of the Dragon magazines had this wheel that you'd cut out and you'd have to put together with the push pins that had the back that would split, so that the wheel would turn. That was like the only good thing about THAC0. Every once in a while, you'll see a picture of that artifact show up. Usually they get a couple hundred afterwards.
It's one of those things that it happens more so afterwards, because especially when it's like noon on a Friday.
Yeah.
People are probably still at work, they've got plans, things like that, but they can always come back to it and watch it later.
Yeah, like we've got Scott owns. He's done a couple RPGs, and we've had him on, and he was like, "Well, I got a Kickstarter on. Should we do it like the last week or the week before?" I'm like, "Well, if you do it the week before, people will keep learning about your Kickstarter for the next week. You might be better off doing that."
Yeah, I know it's worked out really well. Like, don't do it super far out in advance, like a month in advance. Be like, hey, there's a Kickstarter coming up, because people just forget about that stuff. Like, they really do. But if you do it like a week or two in advance, people remember, like, oh yeah, there's this thing that's happening on Friday. I should probably do that.
Are you a dice goblin?
Is that a serious question? No, I actually have this like little bag literally right next to me that I've been playing with. One of my followers sent it to me in my PO box. Like, it's handmade and everything out of chainmail.
Oh, that's nice.
And there's some really cute dice in it that I've gotten from followers. My like little logo in my merch shop, one of my buddies, I commissioned him to make me a dice goblin.
Yeah.
And it's so cute. It had the same hair color that I had when my hair was like bright rainbow colors. And the joke has always been that I've been a dice goblin. Like, there's 2 shelves worth of just dice on my D&D shelf.
Oh, wow.
It's so bad.
I am, but not like Ted is way more than me. He's got just like, one day he came over and he just had all of his dice out, and it was just like, I don't know, like the sewing boxes or tackle boxes or whatever, and just stacked all over the place. And I was like, dude, that's a lot. Like, I have my like I think you've probably seen like the bag of holdings, the bag of devouring.
Oh yeah.
Like, I've got one of them, and it is just jam full of dice. And then like we play, and generally I'll just dump it out, and it's my cornucopia of dice basically, and then I just sort them throughout the whole session. I'm like a vampire or something. And like I'm like, okay, like I got a lot of dice, but I don't think I really qualify as a true dice hoarder.
I do. Like, and it was so bad when there was this game shop like right across the hall from the store I work in. And if we were just having like a slow day or a boring day, I'd go visit one of my girlfriends that works there, and I'm like, hey, so like, are there any good deals on dice? Like, having a slow day, it's a bad mental health day, I need the clickety clack math rocks to make my brain go brr.
A lot of my dice come from, like, I bought like a pound of dice, and I was like, oh cool, I'm good. But then I saw the bag of devouring, the bag of holding. I'm like, oh, I want those. So I got those, and they also come with like a pound of dice. And then anytime I go to a game store, but I'm not really there to shop, like if it's to play a game or something, I'll just buy a set of dice just to support
just to use the dice to support the shop.
So it's just like an easy, quick purchase. And then there's definitely been times that I've gone places the game and then forgot my dice, so I'm like, I'll just buy a couple sets of dice.
I could never. I'm the person that brings like way too many dice because somebody forgets their dice, and it's like, do you want the red set? Do you want the sparkly set? This one's got a liquid core in it. Would you like to try some metal dice for the first time?
But now I made the mistake of getting my wife into gaming, and like that. Part of me is kind of like, people are always like, how do I get my spouse into gaming? And my answer now, I think, is going, like, it used to be, well, you can't really make anyone do anything. You can just like show them what it is, and then you're having fun with it. Now it's my responsibility to be like, don't. They're gonna take all your stuff. Don't. So like, every time a company sends me new dice, I instantly lose them.
Because she's like, these might be your dice, but now they're our dice.
No, it's not even. It's just like, Easy Roller Dice had just sent me a set of the Sharp Edge Celestial dice. Which, they look really nice, and she took them. So,
dude, anytime something is actually like the Sharp Edge styled anything, like even if it's just mildly pointed, they have to stay in their case unless I'm using them, because I will 100% drop them, forget about it, hurt myself in like a week, and it's
cult traps. You just need a bag of those to keep with you in case you need to escape pursuit.
Dude, I have so many D4s. It could be like a probable escape method.
Yeah. But it's okay. They're like, hey, they asked me like, how do you like those dice? I'm like, they look amazing from across the table.
I love watching my wife use them. She's great at it.
Yeah. But also, like, Ted's family all have the hoarder gene, so does not help.
Dude, I'm the same way with like the alt cover books. Like
Yeah.
as soon as I hear a new book coming out, I try to find like the alt cover as quick as possible, like pre-order it from the local game shop type of thing, and hopefully I can get it because I love having them, even if I don't use like the actual physical books as often as I used to. Because
Yeah.
I
Do
use
you have a
D&D Beyond
favorite
for
alt cover?
everything. Honestly, I think my favorite one is the Legend of Theros cover. Oh,
Okay.
it looks so cool. Like the whole like picture from like the front to the back, the way that it just flows together. It's so pretty.
Oh, I'm not sure which one. I'm not sure which one that looks like for the alt cover. I really like Volo's Guide to Monsters. Like that was the first alt cover. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, I actually really want this.
I like that a lot of them have that like soft matte to them.
Oh yeah.
Like it's just such a cool texture. And it sounds weird when I say it like that, but like
Nexus, what do you do with a cleric of the forge that makes a statue of himself every day and awakens it? Turn it into the big bad? I don't know.
it's their pet golem now. Like I don't know what you want me to tell you.
How do they awaken it though? Like I could see how they would animate it, but like that's got
This is true.
limited uses, and I don't know that a cleric of the forge gets to animate objects.
Unless they have like a really good friend in the party that's just like, do you want to do some shenanigans? And it's like,
Yeah.
are we not playing D&D? That's part of the game is shenanigans.
It's all shenanigans.
But they just kind of come together to make this like little automaton type of statue. They're just like, here, go put that in combat. That's my buddy now.
I feel like I need more information about how they got this done in the process, and then how I would use it in the game. I tend to let them do the things that they love and then use them against them at some point.
It's one of those things where this is probably something that I would let my players use and then just be like, hey, if this is going to be something that becomes eventually like game breaking and abused, like we're probably going to have to like give it some type of limit.
Yeah.
Because like I'm not a super huge fan of like actually busted games anymore. They're fun every once in a while, but when it becomes like a regular thing, make it out of plant matter.
So if it's something I'm really vested in and they're going to spend a lot of time working on it, and you can like build adventure arcs and stories around it, what I might do is make a very dumbed down version of a shield guardian and let them have that as a magic item and make them attuned to it.
That's a really good idea too.
So this way there's a cost to it. So so I don't know, did they make, so you're saying they made it out of plants and stuff and then the druid awakened it? I don't know, just because you awaken something doesn't mean it'll even like you. Like
that's gotta be like a thing. Just like treat it like an animal handling check, essentially. Like, does it like you? Give me a charisma check. Like, does the statue actually like you? Is it gonna critique your building abilities?
Does it want something from you in order to do what you want? Like,
is it mad about the plant matter you chose to make it? Like, you could have made me out of mahogany and instead you chose walnut.
Yeah. So yeah, I think there's room for it, and there's nothing wrong with it. If it's like you're saying, if and it is also weird that the Forge cleric did it, because
when I think Forge cleric, I do like very stereotypically think like metal. Like it's a forge.
Yes. I mean, maybe the Forge cleric's god will be insulted.
Like he's just mad at him one day, and it's like, oh yeah, I can be a carpenter today.
Yeah. that would be the other thing, but yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. Like, and if it's not under it technically wouldn't be under their control, so it might stay, it might not stay. It might be helpful sometimes. It might be a pain in the ass sometimes.
I'm literally thinking when you're like, it could stay, it could go. Like you just got to roll to see if it's going to stay or not. And it's just like, I created you, and you're like,
it's just
I don't want to be made.
It's like a bad relationship that just ongoing throughout the campaign, where it just keeps leaving and coming back. They're just like bad breakups. The next time you see it, it's hanging out with another Forge cleric.
They're just chilling out in the smithy room, just like, oh, this is awkward. Why are you here? Why are you here?
Oh, so the issue is the player uses the "I am your creator, worship me." LOL. I'm not sure how many he needs to get God juice. Oh, in that case, like it might be like, well, that's on you, buddy. I didn't ask to be created. Much like my son says to
Yeah.
me often.
Like, I didn't ask to be here. Okay.
Yeah.
Now I got to fend for myself and pay taxes. Like, I would literally I'd treat it like a millennial now. Just
Yeah.
like, I didn't ask to be here. Just because you made me
I was-
doesn't mean I'm appreciative of it. Okay.
Yeah, I was so chill just hanging out in the forest. You ripped me out of my home. So yeah, there's always what the player intends, and then there is kind of what happens. And if they're kind of being a jerk to their creation,
Mm-hmm.
I
Like,
feel like that's gonna not necessarily get the result you want.
yeah, especially if it's something that like it does, like if you awaken it and it does have like its own like thoughts and sentience and feelings and things like that, and you're just like, I get to treat this thing like crap, and it's like, no, you don't. Your actions have consequences.
Yeah,
You made me for no reason.
and what do the other players feel about it? How do NPCs feel about it if they're like that? They're just like, worship me. And like someone else might be like, what? Like their god might take offense as well, just because, especially if you're a cleric, like an actual who worships an actual god, the actual god be like, no, I don't think so, and give them bad dreams or something.
He says he takes great care of them though, so.
Oh, okay.
Then it just feels like the wording just felt weird to me. It's like, worship me.
Yeah.
Please.
Please. Or if they're thinking if they can make enough of them that they will, worship them. And although that definitely feels like kind of low key manipulative.
A little bit, yeah. Like you couldn't get your own following, so you literally made it for yourself.
Yeah. Well, maybe let them like let him do it a few times and it works, but then like that he makes one who is like, wait a minute, we don't have to do it. He says like he unionizes them or something.
You just hear Twisted Sister's just like, we're not gonna take it.
One morning they show up with a list of demands, and this one rabble rouser version of the creation is like got a list of demands, and we want dental.
They unionize.
Yeah. So anyway, we are well past the time. We had an interruption that you might be able to go back and watch us talking while it was just spinning on the live. I think it might have recorded. We shall find out.
Not sure though. We'll figure it out.
But I do appreciate you coming by and bearing with the technical difficulties.
Oh, dude, it was so much fun.
Links are in the description. Final thoughts before we head on out?
Honestly, like we did run into some like technical issues, all that fun stuff. So I was kind of like, this would happen. I was so excited for this, but like we're rolling through it. I'm super excited that I could be here, that I get to like stay on this channel like indefinitely now in my own little video. I'm super excited about that. And I hope to see like your guys' TikTok get a little bit more traffic. I hope to see some people in my comment sections and stuff talking about how they were able to see this. I'm just so excited, and I'm super happy that you invited me to be here.
Except for London Bridges, screw that guy.
Yeah.
Well, thanks again, and until next time, stay nerdy.
Stay nerdy.
Again, thanks again.